What if the biggest AI breakthroughs don't start with advanced algorithms, but instead start with pen and paper? Today we're revealing how medical and trucking businesses found hidden wins by simply mapping out their processes before plugging in technologies.
I welcome robots in a lot of the medical and dental subspecialties. They can really extend the life of a surgeon.
So when you guys mapped out those processes, what did you find? Where did you see there was most opportunity?
The reason that we had so much success over the last couple of years merging the businesses was
by the end of this episode, you'll see why even the most cutting-edge solutions fail without these old-school first steps. We're going to hear from Michael Chudikoff of Midwest Truck and Auto Parts, who led a rapid expansion of that business before exiting, and Daniel Hostler, who has been building out a network of oral surgeries across the US.
We just had to start with mapping out the processes, right? I mean, no typical one or two doctor practice has mapped out the patient flow from consult to surgery to post-op visit and all of the interactions in between. So just building the process maps in the first place allows us to look at the different steps and say, where might AI assist and or replace human involvement? And frankly, where does it, not matter at all, right? AI is not going to help us receive a check payment from a patient, put it into our check reader and make sure it goes deposit. So just mapping out the processes is really the first step for us.
So when you guys mapped out those processes, what did you find? Where did you see there was most opportunity?
Yeah, there's a lot of prep work that goes into, I would say, like the pre-procedure time period. We might be talking about insurance validation or insurance verification. We could be also looking at pre-auths if we're talking about more medical type procedures. So I think there's a lot of ways where you can use automation and AI to present information, to ask specific questions, kind of pre-canned questions based on that practice, and then kind of await the responses to say, okay, patient Jones, she has insurance, it's valid, it's this number, here's what her copay is, here's where her deductible is. I know exactly what I should actually collect from her. And, a lot of us live in the Chicagoland area. I go to a doctor in Chicago and they're like, yeah, it's $75 copay. I'm like, you didn't look it up yet. It's 25. And they're like, oh yeah, it's 25. So, even in a bigger city where you'd think there'd be maybe slightly more sophistication, we still find a lot of manual and or I'm going to say like retrospective style processes.
Right. What about in the trucking parts business? Are there a lot of manual kind of desk work processes where this kind of technology can have an impact, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's desk work, but I think it could extend itself into our warehouses. We had multiple warehouses throughout the country, and there's no doubt that there will be some form of AI that will maybe better map out where our product is and have a better flow of the employee picking the parts to put into an order or knowing what to do with a product when it comes in the door for the first time, and all those small little processes that become kind of tribal knowledge. If we can write those down, iterate from them, and have more of a playbook nature to it, I think there's a AI form, someday that would better utilize itself off of that.
Right. So both of your businesses are really like real world businesses. And so I wonder if kind of we're waiting for like a robotics kind of impact for it to be really kind of impactful in these types of industries, or what?
I think there's a high cost to those robotic systems. So when they become more prevalent and the cost system comes down, I could see that, especially in the warehouse standpoint. You've got a lot of specialized but reoccurring tasks, and if you could input that into some sort of robot, then you're eliminating jobs and creating more efficiency.
Right.
I welcome robots in a lot of the medical and dental subspecialties. In spite of all that they do, I would kind of see two use cases. They can really extend the life of a surgeon, right? If you think about some of the more difficult orthopedic or general surgery cases, the articulation of doing the surgery in a minimally invasive style can be incredibly taxing on the body. So some older surgeons in their mid-60s have said, hey, I might be able to operate into my 70s because the machine never gets tired, right? So in those cases, I'm pretty intrigued. In dentistry, you look at the robot, it takes 45 minutes to set up and then 5 minutes to finish the treatment planning and then 10 minutes to do the case. My doctors love that because a typical case for one of my oral surgeons is 7 minutes. And so if you want to take an hour to do something that should really only take 7 minutes, they kind of welcome the competition doing that. So I don't know that robotics is truly going to replace some of the elements specifically in oral surgery, because we also have anesthesia we're dealing with, right? So what does the robot do when you lose an airway or you start to have a laryngospasm, right? You look at that and you say, okay, I need like real help now. I can't have the robot actually assisting me in this process.
So you talked a little bit about kind of the conversations you've had with different practices around the tech stacks, and Michael, you spoke about implementing kind of the new tech stacks. So in those kind of situations, how do you create that kind of cultural change or ability for staff to move into a different way of work and adopt these types of things?
I think a lot of it comes with real life data and experiences. Maybe take some of the older, more tenured salespeople that maybe weren't on board from the beginning. When you either take them on the road and show them, just imagine if you had this tool, or this tool with you at this time, or take our outside sales reps. Imagine if they had all the data that you have sitting at your desk at their fingertips on an iPad, what that would do for them, both in front of the customer, longevity for the customer, new sales for the customer, and just customer service in general. So that was one of the easier ways to get them on board, is just to show the value add from a lot of that tech stack that could be implemented.
Right.
Yeah, for us, it's pretty complicated, right? I mean, the change management process can be pretty difficult. A lot of doctors, they spent years crafting the process that they believe works. And so if you go in there and say, hey, we're going to try something new, they get pretty nervous. So what we try to do is we try to have almost like a test bed of practices that are willing to be early adopters. So we're currently at 48 locations. We always try to have kind of 5 to 7 clinical locations to test out maybe changes to the clinical tech stack. And then maybe also a 5 to 7 that are focused on operational changes. Some of those 5 to 7 might be the same, but they could be different, right? You might find somebody that says, I don't want you touching my operational side, but I'm open to clinical pathways, or vice versa, where they're just like, I don't want to do anything new. I like my clinical pathways just fine, but you want to try a new way of automating answering the phones for me after hours, I'm all for it.
Right. So Michael, you were involved in a business that kind of underwent a merger and grew rapidly as a result in terms of the infrastructure. What are some kind of secrets or things you learned from that experience?
I think one of the keys is the personnel involved. When you merge with a company, you need to make sure that the right department heads are in place to then oversee the combined nature of that. We were fortunate that there was very strong cohesion between some outgoing members of our company and some incumbent members of the other company. And then from an executive level, kind of checking your ego at the door and not resting on your laurels. So just because one company did something one way and the other another doesn't make one way better or right. So the reason that we had so much success over the last couple of years in merging the businesses was our ability to kind of pick off best practices from each of our businesses and not have that the choice of that proliferate down the employee base, because there could be instances where you're maybe moving someone's cheese in one aspect, but if you've got the right message from the top, they're going to be behind you.
Right. And then on your side, the platform that you built has grown tremendously over the last couple of years. What are the secrets to your kind of growth and managing that growth?
Sure. A couple that I'd share. I was just thinking about it. We literally started from nothing 4.5 years ago. We had no practices and grown rather rapidly. I think one of the harder parts is we're very much de novo opening and acquisition focused, but it also means we better have a good handoff process to go from business development to ops, and then for ops to then kind of be the chief quarterback for all of the other service lines. And sometimes it doesn't go so well, right? I mean, BD learns about specific things that are, areas that need to be worked on rather quickly. And sometimes that baton does not get passed cleanly over to the other side. So we're constantly trying to figure out ways of getting better about that, being open to more opportunities where even if there is something that needs to be worked on or it's a little bit more difficult, we stand at the ready to fix that and don't kind of drop the baton and pick it up and drop it again. And the other thing on the data side that we really focused on was what are the ways that we could start by doing manual data scrapes. And that was intentional rather than using automation right out of the gates, which we could have done. We knew that the quality of our data in certain areas was not great. And the only way to really understand how the plumbing works is to trace the flow of the water from point A to point B. And so I'm glad our team spent the time. It took us about a year just to pull the data and understand how the heck it flowed through the pipes. Once we did that, we were able to develop better reports. Once we did that, we introduced a little bit of automation on the front side. And then after that, we're now automating the front. We're automating some of the reports. And we've gone from something like that we used to do quarterly down to something that gets done daily. But I really appreciate in retrospect, kind of telling the team, like, understand how it works first before we go and try to automate what we may or may not understand.
Wow, what a conversation. We heard how mapping out processes, simple steps on paper, led to some of the most impactful AI applications in both healthcare and trucking. It's amazing how this simple step can make your AI investments even smarter. So before you jump into automation, step back, map out your flows, and let the data guide you.
Or you could skip all that and let the AI overlords eventually map you out. In all seriousness, Dino, do you think we'll get replaced by robots anytime soon?
I think we'll be keeping our day jobs a little bit longer, especially if the robots need us humans to fix their code. Now, my team and I have helped hundreds of organizations with their AI initiatives. We even have our own AI platform, Ogsy, to help accelerate the process. So to keep up with our real-world insights on what we're doing and what we're learning, subscribe to our newsletter, linked in the description, where we discuss frameworks and tools to jumpstart your innovation. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.